Before you took your first breath this morning, before your eyes opened, before your body even decided to move, something extraordinary had already happened inside you. Your brain had already begun writing the story of your day. Not in words, not in images, but in predictions. Silent, invisible, and continuous, it was already deciding what you would notice, what you would ignore, what would feel familiar, what would feel threatening, what would feel meaningful, and what would feel like nothing at all. Long before you encountered the world, your brain had already prepared a version of it. We grow up believing that life happens to us, that the world arrives at our senses, and our minds simply record it like a camera. But this is not how your brain works. Your brain does not wait for reality to tell it what is going on. It guesses, it anticipates, it forecasts, it builds a private internal model of what it expects to happen next. And then it compares that model to the incoming signals from your eyes, your ears, your skin, and your body. What you experience as now is not a direct reading of the world. It is the brain's best prediction of what is about to occur. Your lived reality is not something that arrives at your mind fully formed, complete, and objective. It is something your brain actively builds long before you ever become aware of it. Every moment you experience is not a raw recording of the outside world, but a carefully constructed interpretation assembled by billions of neurons that are constantly trying to answer a single, relentless question: what is going to happen next? This means that the life you feel as real, solid, and immediate is in fact a continuous act of biological storytelling, where your brain writes the script before you ever step onto the stage of the present moment. From the instant you open your eyes in the morning, your brain is already running models of your surroundings. It predicts the way body as you sit up, the temperature of the room, the shape of the floor beneath your feet, the sound your door will make when you open it, the faces you might see, the words that might be spoken to you. These predictions are not abstract thoughts that you consciously imagine. They are fast, automatic, and deeply embedded in the architecture of your nervous system. They guide your movements, regulate your heart rate, prepare your muscles, and tune your senses before any conscious decision has been made. What you call perception is, in this sense, not the passive reception of information, but the active testing of your brain's expectations against incoming signals. Your eyes do not send a complete picture of the world to your brain. They send fragments of light. Your ears do not deliver fully formed sounds. They deliver vibrations. Your skin does not transmit meaning. It transmits pressure and temperature. From these incomplete, ambiguous signals, your brain must rapidly infer what kind of world you are in. And it does this by leaning heavily on what it already expects to be there. This is why you can recognize a familiar face in a split second, even in poor lighting or at a distance. Your brain is not analyzing every detail and then concluding who it is. It is predicting who it is likely to be and then checking whether the incoming information is close enough to that prediction. When the match is good, you experience certainty. When the match is poor, you experience confusion or surprise. But in both cases, the experience you have is still shaped by what your brain thought would be there before your eyes ever finished sending their signals. Your reality, then, is not something that happens to you. It is something your brain is constantly proposing to you. It offers you a version of the world that is optimized not for truth in a philosophical sense, but for survival. The goal of your brain is not to show you reality as it truly is. Its goal is to keep your body alive, stable, and functioning in a changing environment. And so, it builds you a world that is useful, meaningful, and actionable, even if that world is simplified, biased, and sometimes deeply misleading. This also means that what you feel as obvious about your life is often nothing more than a deeply rehearsed prediction. Your sense of what is normal, what is possible, what is dangerous, and what is desirable is shaped by years of accumulated expectations. Your childhood experiences, your culture, your language, your social environment, and your personal history all train your brain on what kind of world it believes you are living in. Over time, these predictions become so efficient and so automatic that they feel like reality itself, not like interpretations of reality. Consider how quickly you judge a situation as safe or unsafe. That judgment does not emerge from a careful analysis of all available evidence. It emerges from rapid predictions based on patterns your brain has learned in the past. A tone of voice, a facial expression, a sudden movement, a familiar smell can instantly trigger a sense of comfort or alarm. Long before you consciously think about what is happening, your brain has already prepared your body to approach, withdraw, freeze, or act. Your heart rate shifts, your muscles tense or relax, your breathing changes, and your attention narrows or widens, all in response to a world that your brain has already sketched in advance. In this way, your emotions are not simply reactions to life. They are predictions about what life is about to demand from you. Anxiety is a forecast of threat. Confidence is a forecast of control. Hope is a forecast of possibility. Despair is a forecast of limitation. These emotional predictions influence your behavior, your choices, and your interpretations, which in turn shape the situations you end up in. And so, your brain's expectations quietly participate in creating the very life you believe you are merely responding to. This is one of the most subtle and powerful feedback loops in human experience. Your predictions shape your actions. Your actions shape your experiences. Your experiences then retrain your predictions. Over time, this loop can stabilize into a narrow version of reality in which you repeatedly encounter the same kinds of outcomes, not because the world is fixed, but because your brain has learned to expect and therefore to create certain patterns of interaction with it. You become, in a very real sense, a self-fulfilling prophecy. This does not mean that the world is imaginary or that nothing exists outside your mind. It means that your access to the world is always mediated by the brain's attempt to anticipate it. You never encounter reality raw. You encounter a carefully filtered, interpreted, and predicted version of it. And because this process is happening continuously and automatically, it feels transparent. It feels like direct contact with the world, even though it is in fact a highly sophisticated internal construction. When you begin to recognize this, a quiet shift takes place. You may start to notice that your certainty is not as solid as it once seemed. You may begin to see that your judgments, your fears, your assumptions, and even your sense of self are not fixed truths, but predictions that could, in principle, be updated. This does not make you powerless, it makes you flexible. It opens the possibility that by gently changing the predictions your brain runs about who you are, what you are capable of, and what the world is like, you can begin to experience a different version of reality without the external world having to change at all. Your brain, in building your reality, is not trying to deceive you. It is trying to protect you, regulate you, and guide you through an uncertain world with limited information and limited time. It builds a reality that is fast, efficient, and personally meaningful. But in doing so, it also quietly shapes the boundaries of what you notice, what you believe, and what you become. And so the world you live in is not simply the world that exists. It is the world your brain has learned to predict, inhabit, and reinforce. Your brain is not a passive observer waiting for reality to arrive. It is a biological engine designed to anticipate, to forecast, and to prepare your body for what is most likely to happen next. Long before you consciously decide to move, speak, or even think, your brain is already running countless predictions about your environment and your internal state, constantly adjusting your physiology and your behavior in advance of the moment you are about to live. This predictive nature is not a feature layered on top of your mind. It is the core function around which your nervous system has evolved. Every second of your existence, your brain is working with incomplete information. The signals coming from your eyes, ears, skin, muscles, and organs are noisy, delayed, and fragmentary. If your brain waited to gather perfect data before acting, you would be slow, uncertain, and vulnerable. Survival in a changing world requires speed and efficiency, not perfect accuracy. To solve this problem, your brain uses prediction as its primary strategy. It builds internal models of what it believes the world is like and what it believes your body needs. And then it uses those models to generate expectations about what is going to happen next. These expectations are not abstract ideas floating in your mind. They are patterns of neural activity that shape how your sensory systems are tuned, how your muscles are primed, how your hormones are released, and how your attention is directed. Before you step onto a staircase, your brain predicts the height of the steps and adjusts your muscles accordingly. Before you take a sip of water, it predicts the temperature and prepares your mouth and throat. Before you hear someone speak, it predicts the likely sounds and meanings of their words. In each case, your experience unfolds as a comparison between what your brain expected and what your senses actually deliver. This predictive machinery extends far beyond simple movements and sensations. It governs your moods, your motivations, and your sense of self. Your brain is constantly forecasting your internal needs, such as how much energy you will require, how much rest you will need, and how much social connection will be beneficial. It adjusts your heart rate, breathing, and metabolism in advance of these needs, often without your awareness. Hunger, fatigue, stress, and comfort are not merely reactions to what has already happened. They are anticipatory signals generated by your brain's best guess about what your body is about to face. In this way, your brain behaves less like a camera and more like a weather forecast system. It does not wait for a storm to arrive before preparing for it. It studies patterns, looks for trends, and makes predictions so that it can act in advance. Sometimes these forecasts are remarkably accurate, sometimes they are wrong. But even when they are wrong, they still shape your experience because your body has already been prepared for a particular future before that future has had a chance to fully unfold. This constant forecasting creates a subtle but powerful influence on your daily life. When your brain predicts that a situation will be threatening, it prepares your body for defense. Your muscles tense, your breathing becomes shallow, your attention narrows, and your thoughts gravitate toward caution. When it predicts that a situation will be rewarding, your body is primed for exploration and engagement. Your posture opens, your breathing deepens, your attention broadens, and your thoughts become more flexible. These physiological shifts happen automatically, shaping how you perceive and respond to what is happening around you. Over time, your brain's predictions become shaped by your personal history. Past experiences train your nervous system on what kinds of outcomes are likely in particular contexts. If certain environments have repeatedly been associated with stress, your brain learns to forecast danger in those environments. If certain activities have repeatedly led to pleasure or success, your brain learns to forecast reward. These learned predictions become part of your internal model of the world, influencing your behavior in ways that feel intuitive, natural, and often unquestionable. This is why habits are so powerful. A habit is not just a repeated action. It is a repeated prediction. Your brain has learned that a particular sequence of events usually unfolds in a particular way, and so it begins to anticipate and prepare for that sequence automatically. You find yourself reaching for your phone, your coffee, or your usual route home not because you have consciously decided to do so, but because your brain has already predicted that this is what is about to happen. The behavior feels almost inevitable because it has been rehearsed internally many times before it ever reaches your awareness. The same predictive machinery also shapes your beliefs and your identity. Your sense of who you are is, in part, a collection of predictions about how you will think, feel, and behave in various situations. You may believe that you are confident, shy, creative, cautious, capable, or limited. These beliefs are not merely descriptive labels. They are forecasts. They influence how your brain prepares you to act. If your brain predicts that you will fail, it may dampen your motivation and narrow your attention, making failure more likely. If it predicts that you will succeed, it may increase your energy and focus, making success more achievable. In this way, your brain's predictions quietly participate in shaping your future. They do not determine it in a rigid or mechanical sense, but they bias the range of possibilities you are most likely to notice and pursue. They influence which opportunities you see as realistic, which risks you are willing to take, and which paths you avoid. The life you end up living is therefore not only a result of external circumstances, but also a result of the internal forecasts your brain has been running for years. Despite how automatic and invisible this process is, it is not entirely fixed. Your brain's models are constantly being updated based on new experiences. When reality repeatedly contradicts a prediction, your brain gradually adjusts its expectations. This is how learning occurs. However, because your brain prioritizes efficiency and stability, it does not change its models lightly. It prefers to interpret new information in ways that preserve existing predictions whenever possible. This tendency can make your world feel stable and familiar, but it can also make it resistant to change. Understanding that your brain is fundamentally a prediction engine can transform how you relate to your own experience. You may begin to see your thoughts, emotions, and reactions not as absolute truths, but as forecasts generated by a biological system doing its best to prepare you for what it expects to happen. You may start to notice that many of your limitations are not imposed directly by the world, but by the predictions your brain has learned to make about what is possible for you. In recognizing this, a quiet space opens up between expectation and experience, a space in which new patterns can begin to form, and new versions of yourself can slowly come into existence. What you experience as the present moment feels immediate, direct, and undeniable, as though you are standing face to face with reality exactly as it is. It feels as though your senses open a window onto the world, and what you see, hear, and feel simply arrives in your mind, unfiltered and complete. Yet beneath this feeling of immediacy lies a far stranger truth. The moment you believe you are living in is not the world as it is happening. It is your brain's best guess of what is about to happen next, delivered to you with such speed and coherence that it feels like reality itself. Your brain is always working slightly ahead of your senses. The signals coming from your eyes, ears, skin, and organs take time to travel through your nervous system. By the time they arrive in the brain and are processed, the physical world has already moved on. If your brain waited to assemble your experience until every signal had been fully processed, your awareness would lag behind reality in a way that would make coordinated action nearly impossible. To solve this, your brain predicts the immediate future and presents that prediction to you as the present moment. This means that the now you experience is a carefully constructed estimate. It is the brain's attempt to stay synchronized with a world that is always one step ahead. It anticipates what your body will feel like, what your surroundings will look like, and what events are likely to unfold in the next fraction of a second. When the incoming sensory information matches these expectations, your experience feels smooth, continuous, and real. When it does not, you feel surprise, confusion, or even disbelief, not because reality has suddenly changed, but because your brain's prediction has been challenged. This predictive present explains why the world feels stable, even though the sensory information reaching your brain is fragmented and delayed. Your eyes sample only small portions of your visual field at any given moment. Your ears receive overlapping vibrations. Your skin senses pressure in isolated patches. Yet your experience is of a coherent, continuous world. This coherence is not delivered by the senses. It is generated by the brain, which fills in gaps, smooths transitions, and constructs a seamless present out of incomplete data by leaning on what it expects to be there. Your experience of time itself is shaped by this process. You do not experience time as a sequence of raw physical events. You experience it as a flowing narrative that makes sense to you. This narrative is constructed by your brain as it predicts what should come next based on what has just happened. The sense of continuity, of one moment leading naturally into another, arises because your brain is constantly rehearsing the near future and then confirming or revising those rehearsals as sensory information arrives. This also means that your present moment is deeply personal. Two people can be in the same place at the same time, exposed to the same physical conditions, and yet experience very different no's. Their brains are running different models of what matters, what is relevant, and what is likely to happen next. One person may feel at ease, another may feel tense. One may notice details that the other completely overlooks. These differences do not arise from the external world alone. They arise from the predictions each brain is making about what this moment is supposed to be. Your emotions are part of this predictive present. When you feel calm, anxious, excited, or bored, you are not simply reacting to what is happening. You are experiencing your brain's forecast of what this moment is likely to demand from you. Anxiety is the feeling of a predicted future that requires vigilance. Boredom is the feeling of a predicted future that offers little reward. Excitement is the feeling of a predicted future that promises something valuable. These feelings shape your perception of the present by coloring what you notice and how you interpret it. Because your brain presents its predictions as reality, it is easy to mistake them for unquestionable facts. You may feel that a situation is hopeless, dangerous, or unimportant, not realizing that these are not direct properties of the world, but interpretations generated by your nervous system's best guess about what is about to happen. The present moment you live inside is therefore not a neutral stage on which life unfolds. It is an active construction shaped by your brain's expectations. This has profound implications for how you understand your own experience. Many of your worries are not about what is happening now, but about what your brain predicts might happen next. Yet you feel them in the present. Your body reacts to a future that has not yet arrived as if it were already here. Your heart races, your muscles tense, and your attention narrows, all in response to a predicted scenario. In this way, your present moment can be dominated by futures that exist only in your brain's internal models. At the same time, your sense of safety and comfort also arises from predicted futures. When your brain forecasts that your environment is stable and manageable, your body relaxes. You feel grounded, present, and at ease. This feeling does not come from perfect knowledge of the world. It comes from a prediction that, for now, things are likely to be okay. Your present moment, then, is always leaning into the future, shaped by what your brain thinks is about to occur. Because your brain's predictions are based on past experiences, your present moment is also shaped by your personal history. Patterns you have learned in the past influence what your brain expects in the present. If you have often encountered criticism, in certain situations, your brain may predict criticism again, even when none is actually present. You may feel tense, defensive, or withdrawn, not because anything threatening is happening now, because your brain is preparing you for a future it believes is like. The present moment you experience is therefore a blend of what is happening and what has happened before, filtered through what your brain expects next. Recognizing that your present is a prediction does not make it unreal. It makes it understandable. It reveals that your experience is an ongoing negotiation between what your brain expects and what the world provides. This negotiation is what gives rise to the feeling of being here, now, in this moment. It is the brain's attempt to stay one step ahead of reality, while remaining anchored enough to adjust when its guesses are wrong. In every breath you take, in every step you make, in every word you hear, your brain is quietly presenting you with a best guess of the immediate future and calling it now. Your sense of being alive in this moment is therefore inseparable from the predictions your nervous system is generating about what is about to happen, about what this moment means, and about what kind of future it is already pointing toward. Your emotions, beliefs, and even your sense of who you are do not simply arise as reactions to the world as it unfolds. They begin as predictions. Long before you consciously interpret a situation, your brain has already generated expectations about what it thinks is about to happen, what it thinks it will mean for you, and what kind of response will be required. These predictions shape the feelings that move through your body, the thoughts that appear in your mind, and the identity you carry into each moment. When you walk into a room, your brain is already running forecasts. It is predicting whether this place is likely to be safe or threatening, welcoming or rejecting, familiar or uncertain. These predictions immediately influence your emotional state. You may feel calm, guarded, curious, or uneasy without knowing exactly why. These emotions are not passive reflections of the environment. They are anticipatory signals generated by your nervous system's best guess about what this situation is likely to demand from you. Your beliefs function in a similar way. A belief is not merely a conclusion you have drawn in the past and stored in your memory. It is an ongoing prediction about how the world works and what is likely to happen when you act within it. If you believe that people are generally trustworthy, your brain predicts positive social outcomes, preparing you to be open and relaxed. If you believe that people are generally critical, your brain predicts negative outcomes, preparing you to be cautious or defensive. These beliefs shape your behavior in ways that influence the responses you actually receive, often reinforcing the very predictions that produced them. This is why beliefs can feel so solid and self-evident. They are not just ideas you hold. They are part of the predictive machinery that organizes your experience. They influence what you notice, what you remember, and how you interpret ambiguous situations. Over time, your brain becomes more confident in its forecasts because it keeps encountering evidence that appears to confirm them, even when that evidence is partly created by the way you behave under the influence of those same predictions. Your identity is perhaps the most intimate and powerful set of predictions your brain runs. When you say, "This is who I am," you are expressing a collection of expectations about how you will think, feel, and behave in different situations. You may see yourself as confident, shy, capable, anxious, disciplined, creative, or limited. These labels are not just descriptions of past behavior. They are forecasts about your future behavior. They prepare your brain to act in certain ways before you are even aware of making a choice. If your brain predicts that you are not good at public speaking, your body may tense, your breathing may become shallow, and your attention may narrow the moment you imagine standing in front of an audience. These physiological changes are not reactions to actual failure. They are reactions to a predicted future in which failure is expected. The feeling of anxiety, the urge to avoid, and the thoughts of doubt all arise as part of the brain's attempt to prepare you for what it believes is about to happen. In this way, your emotions are not merely responses to events. They are part of the brain's preparation for predicted outcomes. Fear prepares you to escape or defend. Sadness prepares you to withdraw and conserve energy. Anger prepares you to confront obstacles. Joy prepares you to explore and connect. Each emotional state reflects a forecast about what the future is likely to require from you. These forecasts are shaped by your past experiences, your social environment, and the patterns your brain has learned over time. Because these predictions are generated automatically and continuously, they can easily be mistaken for objective truths. You may feel that a situation is hopeless, that you are incapable, or that others are judging you, without realizing that these are not direct properties of reality, but interpretations created by your brain's expectations. The emotional weight of these predictions makes them feel real and urgent, even when the future they are preparing you for has not yet arrived. This predictive nature of emotion and identity also explains why change can feel so difficult. When you attempt to act outside of your usual patterns, you are not just challenging habits. You are challenging predictions that your brain has relied on to keep you stable and safe. New behaviors introduce uncertainty, and uncertainty requires your brain to revise its forecasts. This revision can feel uncomfortable, confusing, or even threatening because it temporarily disrupts the internal model your nervous system uses to navigate the world. Yet this same mechanism is what makes change possible. Because your emotions, beliefs, and identity are predictions rather than fixed properties, they can be updated through new experiences. When you repeatedly encounter situations that contradict your brain's expectations, your nervous system gradually adjusts its forecasts. Over time, what once felt impossible can begin to feel natural. What once triggered fear can begin to feel manageable. What once seemed out of reach can begin to feel within your capacity. This process often happens quietly and gradually. You may not notice the moment your predictions begin to shift. You may simply find that you feel less anxious in situations that once overwhelmed you, or more confident in situations that once made you doubt yourself. Your identity may begin to feel different, not because you consciously decided to change it, but because your brain has learned new patterns of what to expect from you and from the world. Understanding that your emotions, beliefs, and identity are predictions, can also soften the way you relate to yourself. You may begin to see your struggles not as personal flaws, but as forecasts your brain has learned to make based on past experiences. This perspective can open a space for curiosity rather than judgment, for experimentation rather than resignation. You can begin to gently test new possibilities, allowing your brain to gather new evidence and update its models of who you are and what you are capable of. Your inner world is therefore not a static portrait of who you have always been. It is a living, evolving system of predictions that your brain continuously refines in response to experience. Every thought you have, every emotion you feel, and every story you tell about yourself is part of an ongoing attempt by your nervous system to anticipate the future and prepare you for it. You are not only responding to life as it happens, you are participating in the creation of your life through the expectations your brain brings into each moment. When you begin to understand that your brain is constantly predicting your life before you live it, something quietly transformative happens. You start to realize that your future is not shaped only by external circumstances, but also by the internal forecasts your nervous system is continuously generating about what is possible, what is likely, and what is safe. This realization does not mean that you suddenly gain absolute control over your life, but it does mean that you gain leverage. You gain a subtle but powerful influence over how your experience unfolds by learning how to work with the predictive nature of your mind, rather than unconsciously living inside it. Most of your daily actions feel like responses to the world. You wake up, you check your phone, you go to work, you speak to people, you make decisions, and you believe that you are simply reacting to what is happening around you. Yet beneath these actions lie predictions that shape what you notice, what you expect, and what you are prepared to do. Your brain has already made quiet assumptions about how your day will go, how people will treat you, and how capable you are of handling what comes your way. These assumptions influence your posture, your tone of voice, your energy, and your willingness to engage long before you consciously decide how to act. Gaining leverage over your life does not require you to control every thought or emotion. It begins with learning to notice your predictions. You may start to observe the subtle expectations that appear in your mind when you approach a situation. You may notice the quiet thought that says you will fail, the feeling that says this will be difficult, or the assumption that says nothing will change. These are not neutral observations. They are forecasts your brain is making about the future. And because your brain prepares your body to act in line with these forecasts, they quietly shape your behavior in ways that make certain outcomes more likely than others. When you recognize these forecasts as predictions rather than as facts, you create a small space between what your brain expects and what is actually happening. In that space, new possibilities can emerge. You may choose to experiment with acting as if a different outcome were possible, even if your brain has not yet fully updated its model. This might mean speaking up when you would normally stay silent, trying something new when you would normally avoid it, or allowing yourself to imagine success where you would normally anticipate failure. These small experiments provide your brain with new data. They expose your nervous system to outcomes that do not fully match its previous predictions. Over time, as these new experiences accumulate, your brain begins to revise its forecasts. What once felt dangerous may begin to feel manageable. What once felt impossible may begin to feel achievable. This is how real change takes root, not through sudden forceful control, but through repeated gentle updates to the predictions your brain relies on to guide your behavior. This process also changes the way you relate to challenges. Instead of seeing difficulty as proof that you are incapable or that the world is against you, you may begin to see it as a mismatch between your brain's predictions and the complexity of reality. This perspective can reduce self-judgment and open the door to curiosity. You may begin to ask not why you are failing, but what your brain expected and how those expectations might be refined. Leverage also emerges in how you shape your environment, because your brain learns from repeated patterns. The context you place yourself in play a powerful role in shaping your predictions. The people you spend time with, the information you consume, the routines you follow, and the physical spaces you inhabit all provide data that your nervous system uses to update its models of the world. By deliberately choosing environments that reflect the kind of future you want to move toward, you give your brain consistent evidence that new patterns are possible. For example, if you want your brain to predict confidence rather than anxiety, it helps to repeatedly place yourself in situations where you can practice and experience small successes. If you want your brain to predict connection rather than rejection, it helps to cultivate relationships that are supportive and reliable. Over time, these experiences reshape your internal forecasts, making new emotional and behavioral patterns feel more natural and less effortful. Leverage also lies in the way you interpret your own experiences. When something goes wrong, your brain may quickly predict that this outcome confirms a negative belief about you or about the world. You may feel that a mistake proves you are incompetent, or that a rejection proves you are unworthy. These interpretations are not neutral facts. They are predictions about what this event means for your future. By learning to question and gently reframe these interpretations, you offer your brain alternative models to consider. You provide it with a broader range of possible meanings, which can soften the emotional impact of setbacks and keep your internal models more flexible. Understanding the predictive nature of your mind can also deepen your sense of agency. Agency does not come from controlling every outcome. It comes from recognizing that your expectations influence your actions, and your actions influence your experiences. You begin to see yourself not as a passive recipient of life, but as an active participant in a continuous loop of prediction and experience. This does not make life perfectly predictable, but it does make your role within it more visible. Over time, this awareness can subtly reshape your sense of identity. Instead of seeing yourself as fixed, you may begin to see yourself as a system that is always learning, updating, and evolving. Your fears, habits, and limitations become less like permanent features and more like temporary predictions that can be revised. This shift can bring a sense of possibility into your daily life, even in small ways. You may find yourself trying new things, taking gentle risks, and allowing yourself to imagine different futures, not because you are certain they will happen, but because you understand that your brain needs new evidence in order to predict differently. In this way, understanding how your brain predicts your life does not simply change what you think, it changes how you live. It invites you into a quieter, deeper form of influence over your own experience, one that works not by force, but by guiding the internal forecasts that shape what you notice, what you attempt, and what you become.